Michael Jackson, the king of pop. By 2009, Jackson suffered from chronic insomnia, anxiety, and heavy pressure before his comeback show, This Is It. His personal doctor, Conrad Murray, gave him strong sedatives. On the night of June 24 and early morning of June 25, 2009, Murray injected propofol, a powerful anesthetic, in Jackson's bedroom. After the injection, Murray left the room for a short time. When he returned, Jackson was not breathing and had no pulse. Murray delayed calling 911 and tried CPR himself. The delay was serious. When paramedics arrived, Jackson had been in cardiac arrest for a long time. He was taken to UCLA Medical Center, but the doctors could not save him. Michael Jackson was pronounced dead at 2:26 p.m., age 50. The autopsy ruled the cause of death as acute propofol poisoning, combined with other sedatives. In 2011, Conrad Murray was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter and sentenced to 4 years in prison. Jackson's death shocked the world. Millions mourned him. His music and cultural impact continue to this day. Thomas Alva Edison. Thomas Alva Edison, known as the Wizard of Menlo Park, was one of the most prolific inventors in history. Even in his 80s, he refused to retire. However, he was slowly weakened by diabetes. The disease caused organ failure. On October 18, 1931, Edison drifted in and out of a coma. His wife, Mina, stayed by his bedside. Shortly before his death, he briefly regained consciousness, opened his eyes, looked out the window, and smiled. At 9 p.m. on October 18, 1931, Thomas Edison died peacefully in his sleep at the age of 84. After his death, at the request of his close friend Henry Ford, Edison's son Charles collected his father's final breath in a glass test tube and sealed it with paraffin. Ford believed the human soul might leave the body with the last breath and wanted to preserve it. Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe was the world's premier sex symbol and the biggest box office draw of the 1950s. She struggled with intense anxiety, depression, and growing dependency on prescription medication after failed marriages. August 4, 1962, Marilyn spent several hours on the phone with friends and her psychiatrist. Around 8 p.m., she retreated to her bedroom. Eunice Murray, the housekeeper, saw light still shining under Marilyn's bedroom door. She knocked. No answer. The door was locked from the inside. She called Dr. Greenson. He rushed to the scene, smashed a window to get inside, and confirmed she was dead. Moments later, Marilyn's personal doctor, Hyman Engelberg, arrived. Marilyn lay face down, her arms at her sides, one hand tightly gripping a telephone receiver. Around 12 to 15 pill bottles sat on the bedside table, including large amount of Nembutal and chloral hydrate. Yet something felt wrong. Such a massive overdose would normally cause vomiting or convulsions. The room was spotless. No glass of water was found anywhere in the bedroom. Later, Murray changed her testimony several times about when she discovered the body. This raised suspicions that the scene had been cleaned before police arrived. Despite the doubts, the autopsy concluded that Marilyn died from acute barbiturate poisoning. Marilyn's death at such a young age froze her image in time, turning her from a movie star into a permanent legend. Stephen Hawking. Stephen Hawking was known as one of the most famous scientists in modern history, known worldwide for his work on black holes and cosmology. On March 14, 2018, at his home in Cambridge, England, he was 76 years old. Since 1963, Stephen Hawking had lived with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS, a motor neuron disease. Doctors originally gave him 2 years to live when he was diagnosed at age 21. Instead, he survived with the condition for 55 years, becoming one of the longest-known ALS survivors. At the beginning of 2018, Hawking remained intellectually active. He required a wheelchair, 24-hour care, and communicated through a speech-generating device operated by a cheek muscle. During the night of March 13 to 14, 2018, due to the worsening complications of ALS, Hawking experienced difficulties in breathing and swallowing food. Hawking died peacefully at home, surrounded by family. His children confirmed his death and described him as a great scientist and an extraordinary man. On June 15, 2018, his ashes were interred at Westminster Abbey, between the graves of Isaac Newton and Charles Darwin. Just weeks after his death, his final scientific paper on cosmology was published as Brief Answers to the Big Questions. Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great built one of history's largest empires by age 30, stretching from Greece to India. May 323 BC, Alexander held great banquets in preparation for his planned invasion of Arabia. He drank heavily through the night with Admiral Medius. While lifting a large cup, Alexander suddenly cried out in agony as if a spear had pierced his back. He was immediately carried to his bed, burning with a raging fever. During the first 5 days, the fever did not subside. Confined to his sickbed, Alexander still attempted to bathe and perform religious rituals. Between the 6th and 9th days, he slipped in and out of delirium. By the 10th and 11th days, rumors of Alexander's death spread throughout the army. Thousands of enraged Macedonian soldiers demanded to force their way into the palace to see their king. Alexander now lay completely paralyzed and unable to speak. He could only move his eyes, silently bidding farewell to each soldier as they marched past. In the late afternoon, inside the palace of Nebuchadnezzar II, Alexander the Great breathed his last. He was only 32 years old. Ancient records claim Alexander's body did not decay for 6 days after his death. Some modern doctors suggest he may have been mistakenly declared dead due to GBS-induced paralysis, remaining conscious but unable to move or breathe visibly. Pelé, the king of football. Pelé was the greatest football player to ever walk the earth. He remains the only person in history to win 3 FIFA World Cups. The king's health began a steep decline in September 2021. During a routine medical exam, doctors discovered a tumor in his right colon. Pelé underwent immediate surgery to remove the mass and began a grueling cycle of chemotherapy. For over a year, he fought the disease privately, but by late 2022, his body stopped responding to the treatment. On November 29, 2022, Pelé entered the Albert Einstein Hospital in Sao Paulo. He developed a respiratory infection, and his cancer began to spread to other organs. Doctors moved him to palliative care as his heart and kidneys started to fail. At 3:27 p.m. on December 29, 2022, the hospital officially confirmed his passing. He was 82 years old. Brazil declared 3 days of national mourning. Tens of thousands of fans lie in the streets of Santos to watch his funeral procession. Qin Shi Huang. Qin Shi Huang was the first man to unify China, the builder of the Great Wall, and the creator of the Terracotta Army. He was terrified of dying and spent his final years desperately searching for the elixir of life. Court alchemists fed him so-called magical pills and potions made primarily from mercury. In late 2010 BC, during his final inspection tour, his health collapsed rapidly. He suffered from strange hallucinations, extreme fatigue, and mental instability. Qin Shi Huang was suffering from chronic mercury poisoning. Over months of ingestion, it destroyed his nervous system, kidneys, and brain. In his final days, he shook uncontrollably, grew paranoid, and his organs shut down. Clear signs of heavy metal poisoning. September 10, 210 BC, during the sweltering heat of summer, the emperor died at the Shaqiu Prefecture Palace. Fearing political chaos, his advisors concealed the truth. His corpse was sealed inside the imperial carriage as the entourage returned to the capital. As the body decomposed, the stench became unbearable. Carts of rotting fish were placed around the carriage to mask the smell. Qin Shi Huang was eventually buried in his massive booby-trap mausoleum, guarded by the Terracotta Army. Elvis Presley. Elvis Presley is known as the king of rock and roll. He was not just a singer, but also a cultural icon, having a significant impact on music and society in the 1950s and 1960s. In the early hours of that morning of August 16, 1977, at age 42 at his Graceland mansion in Memphis, Tennessee, Elvis Presley was scheduled to fly to Portland, Maine later that day to begin a new tour. Around 7 a.m., he told his fiancée, Ginger Alden, "I'm going to the bathroom to read." At approximately 2 p.m., Alden found Presley lying face down on the bathroom floor, unresponsive, with no signs of movement. Staff member Joe Esposito called emergency services. Paramedics arrived quickly and transported Presley by ambulance to Baptist Memorial Hospital. Doctors attempted advanced cardiac life support but failed to revive him. Presley was pronounced dead at 3:30 p.m. The official cause of death was listed as cardiac arrhythmia. Toxicology reports later revealed multiple prescription drugs in his system, including opioids and sedatives. Presley's death shocked the music world. Tens of thousands gathered outside Graceland within hours. His funeral took place on August 18, 1977. Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee was a 32-year-old martial arts legend and film star. He broke racial barriers in Hollywood, becoming the first Asian actor to achieve global leading man status and paving the way for future Asian stars. Beyond film, he founded Jeet Kune Do. On May 10, 1973, during post-production work for Enter the Dragon, Bruce Lee collapsed with a severe headache and convulsions. Doctors diagnosed cerebral edema of the brain and treated him at Hong Kong Baptist Hospital. He regained consciousness after treatment. On July 20, Lee met producer Raymond Chow to discuss his next film, Game of Death. Around 7:30 p.m., at the home of actress Betty Ting Pei, Lee complained, "I have a headache." He took Equagesic, a prescription painkiller that combined aspirin and meprobamate. Shortly afterward, Lee lay down to rest. When friends discovered him unresponsive, they called a doctor and spent about 10 minutes trying to revive him, before Lee was rushed to Queen Elizabeth Hospital. All efforts failed, and he was pronounced dead later that night. An official autopsy found Lee's brain weight had increased by roughly 12.5%, consistent with acute cerebral edema. The coroner's court ruled the death a death by misadventure. Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela was one of the most respected political figures of the 20th century, a man who led South Africa out of apartheid and became a global symbol of reconciliation. He died on December 5, 2013, at the age of 95. He had suffered from recurring lung infections for years, linked to tuberculosis contracted during his 27 years in prison. In June 2013, he was hospitalized for nearly 3 months with a severe lung infection before being discharged for home-based critical care. On the evening of December 5, at approximately 8:50 p.m. local time, at his home in Houghton, Johannesburg, surrounded by family members, Mandela passed away peacefully at home. At 11:45 p.m., then President Jacob Zuma addressed the nation on live television, stating, "Our nation has lost its greatest son." The government declared 10 days of national mourning. On December 10, a state memorial service was held at FNB Stadium in Johannesburg, attended by representatives from about 170 countries, making it one of the largest gatherings of world leaders in history. Mandela was buried on December 15, 2013, in his ancestral village of Kunu, Eastern Cape, following a state funeral with military honors. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe and tell me which story you'd like to see next. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.